Let's get back with Ted Lieu right now, California congressman, who was there with me just as we were introducing him. The vice president took to the podium. So, sir, as I welcome you, I'm curious your response to what Joe Biden said there.
Thank you, Alex, for your question. I think Joe Biden is absolutely right. This is about your health care. I was in Congress when the Republicans tried to repeal their Affordable Care Act. They failed. Now they're trying to do it through the courts. And they are currently suing right now to eliminate the only law in the nation that guarantees Americans have coverage for pre-existing conditions. Amy Coney Barrett has previously written that she disagrees with what Chief Justice John Roberts did in upholding the ACA. So this is a very real threat to your health care.
Yeah, and this is something that will be presented before the Supreme Court 1 short week after an election, which we're not even sure we will have the results of the election by the day this would be presented, correct? That would be November 10th. It's going to be presented to the Supreme Court. So how is this playing, do you think, in the minds not only of our elected officials, but with voters as they listen to what could happen to their health care?
If you look at the polling, it shows that the pandemic and healthcare are the two top issues on voters' minds. And this certainly has an effect on the voters because we see that Joe Biden is not only holding stable in his lead in the polls, he's actually increasing his lead somewhat. So I think this is not going well for Donald Trump or the Republicans. And again, I urge that the Republicans do not vote on this confirmation until after the election.
You can urge it, but is there anything that you can do, you and your colleagues in the Senate, to slow down the confirmation process until after the election? I mean, I'm looking at details here from the Congressional Research Service. This is unprecedented. There never before has been a Supreme Court nominee in an election year after the date of July 1st. It's extraordinary. It takes on average 67 days for a Supreme Court nominee to be up for a vote and make their way through the confirmation process. I mean, what can you do to slow this down? Anything?
I think Abraham Lincoln had it right when he said public sentiment is everything. With it, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. So if we have a strong movement of public sentiment across America, then I do think we have a chance at stopping this confirmation, the same way that we were able to stop the repeal of the ACA when they tried to do it through Congress. And what we see now is a lot of Republican senators who are at risk of losing their seats in a general election continue to put pressure on those Republican senators. And then we'll see what happens if the vote were to come.
But the question is stop or stall, because even if Joe Biden wins the election on November 3rd, at what point it gets certified, we don't know 100% yet. But we still have those elected officials in place until the beginning of the year. So all this clamoring for having the Supreme Court confirmation process wait until after the election, it could still get barreled through, right, in November and into December?
That is correct. The Republicans would still have the power to do that. But if Joe Biden wins, which I think he will, and we flip the Senate and hold the House, then it seems very difficult just from a pure political standpoint for Republicans to continue to jam through this nominee when the American people have just rejected them.
What about your colleagues there in Senate Judiciary who are saying that they want to know if Judge Barrett would recuse herself if any kind of election issues come up before the court? Let's say she gets confirmed, she becomes an associate justice. What do you think about this notion? Do you agree? And is there any precedent for that?
I agree she should recuse herself. If she is confirmed, she would probably have a very long career ahead of her. There's no reason for her to delegitimize herself by immediately voting on a contested election, if that were to happen, by the person who just nominated her barely a few weeks ago. So I do hope she herself if she is in fact confirmed.
Let's move on to the president's last week refusal, twice, by the way, to commit to a peaceful transition of power. Here's what Joe Biden said about that yesterday on MSNBC.
This is a typical Trump distraction. It's trying to make everybody wonder whether or not the election will be legit and whether or not absentee ballots matter. While he's writing his absentee ballots out, he's voting from the Oval Office to run in Florida. To vote in Florida. But I just think the people in this country are going to be heard November 3rd.
What is this? I mean, is this a Trump distraction, or do you have legitimate concerns the president would not actually accept a peaceful transition of power if he loses the election? And I recall the time that Joe Biden, by the way, said that, you know, the United States military knows how to remove an intruder or a trespasser when he was referring to removing the president from actually the White House grounds.
I previously served on active duty in the U.S. military, and before I could do that, I had to take one oath. That was not to the president. It was not to a specific person. It was to the Constitution of the United States. So if Joe Biden wins, which, again, I think he will, then I do believe that regardless of what Donald Trump thinks or says, the Secret Service and the U.S. military will kindly escort him out of the White House on January 20th.
Okay. Do you have concerns that have been echoed by the Biden campaign? Bob Bauer, I believe, was one who was saying it, that all this concern about talking about the Supreme Court nominee and all the disconcerting issues with voting by mail, that will considerably serve to depress people's enthusiasm, that they may decide to become somewhat apathetic and not vote? Or do you think people are stirred up enough to get out there and vote, however they manage to do it?
I believe people are fired up, and we know from early voting that, in fact, people are fired up. And the best way to make sure that this election goes smoothly is for Joe Biden to win by a comfortable margin. So that means if you haven't voted yet by mail, please request your absentee ballot early. Please vote early. And if you're in Pennsylvania, make sure you put your ballot in that stupid secrecy envelope before you mail it in. Otherwise, it won't be counted.
California Congressman Representative Ted Lieu, you spent a lot of time with us. Thank you for waiting with us through the vice president's remarks there. Appreciate it. Good to see you.